Welcome to the Communication Diva Podcast, episode 32. This week's podcast is a feature interview with Stephen Gann of Forward Focus Coaching. Stephen is a life coach specializing in areas of life transitions and performance, with a particular passion for youth baseball. Stephen says that when it comes to kids and sports, there is a time when it is important for adults to get out of the game and let kids be kids and play. As of the time this podcast was published, Tim Hortons, Coca-Cola, and Nike could not be reached for their response.
Welcome to Communication Diva, the podcast that helps you to improve your communication skills in the hopes that you can improve your relationships. I'm Jenn Swanson, and I wanted to thank you all for listening. If this is your first time or if this is the 32nd time that you've listened, I hope that you find something of value in this episode. I'm sounding a little hoarse in the voice here. I have been on a whirlwind trip to New York City to speak at the 140 EDU conference, also called the State of Now, at the 92nd Street Y in the Upper East Side of New York. And we were only there for a couple of days to take in this conference, and I actually spoke on my birthday, so that was kind of fun. Those videos, the video of the speech that I did will be posted eventually when it's available in a couple of weeks, and I'll make sure I put it on the website in case you're interested in listening. I spoke about social smarts, things kids need to know that they aren't learning in school. And so I'll be happy to share that with you when it becomes available. And then I got back. We've moved into our new house and we're still in the midst of boxes. It's a bit crazy, hard to find anything around here. And I jumped right into an intensive training program in NLP, or Neuro-Linguistic Programming, which is a fascinating communication topic. I'm sure I'll be talking more about that in the coming episodes. But today, without any further talking from me, I want to turn you over to the interview of the day with life coach, and also baseball coach, Stephen Gann. So here is Stephen, and here is our interview from earlier today. So here we are, and I'm pleased to have my featured guest, Stephen Gann, here with me today. And I'd just like to say welcome, Stephen, and thanks for coming on to Communication Diva.
Hi, Jen. How are you today?
I'm just great. We're sitting outside in Vancouver, and it's not so sunny today, but it's quite nice. And we're on an outside patio, and, things really couldn't be better.
Oh, you can't ask for a better day than today. Being in Vancouver on a sunny summer day is the best.
That's right. Excellent. So I'd like to begin, Stephen, by just asking you to introduce yourself and tell the listeners a little bit about what it is that you do.
Well, my name is Stephen Gann. I'm the owner and a professional coach with Forward Focus Coaching, based out of Richmond, British Columbia, Canada. I'm a solution-focused coach. Some people will call it life coaching, but I specialize in transitions, mainly career, sometimes relationships, like divorce, people after divorce and things like that, and performance coaching, which is mainly dealing with maximizing people's potential in sport, and specifically baseball. I've kind of got a passion for baseball, so by integrating that, I can really help athletes take their game to the next level.
Okay, so some people may not have heard about coaching. Coaching is becoming more widespread and more common, but for those who have never heard of coaching in the non-sport sense, what does that mean for you?
Well, that's a good question. I think, to me, what it means is, putting your life in play. In other words, like I said earlier, maximizing your potential. It is becoming aware of what your goals are, and why those are important to you. A lot of people will know what it is they want, but they're very generic, very like, I want more money, or I want a better life. Well, what coaching does is allows you to filter through that. It allows you to get specific, determine why is that important to you. link some values into that. Not only why is it important to you, what would having that part of your life be so important that you'd be willing to focus on? And once you determine that, coaching helps hold you accountable to accomplishing that goal, step by step, walking with you. I'm like a navigator, for instance. I'll draw the map that you create, and I'll walk beside you, not hand in hand necessarily, but holding that map and letting you find your way.
That's great. And so what does a coaching session with a client look like? Do you do this for an hour, for 2 hours? How long? And do you do it in person, or how do you do that?
Well, coaching works really well over the phone. Most of my clients I talk with over the phone. They're in North America. I work in the U.S. as well as Canada. And a typical coaching session starts, it's like a conversation, Good mornings. It was a wonderful day in Vancouver, much like today. And then, it starts with a question. So, if we have about 45 minutes today, what would be the best use of your time? And then we go forward from that. So setting the specific use of our session for the day, usually it's based around a long-term goal we've already contracted around. Coaching works best for 3 to 6 months and even longer. I've got clients that are longer than a year. And those are long-term goals. They're really trying to move towards something different. And so the session is based up in little chunks on step-by-step how to get from A to B to C to D and on toward your goals. So a coaching session, if you can imagine, we start at the beginning about what it is you want, and at the end we imagine what that would look like, and then what are the next steps, and talk about what the value of the session was, and that's it. It's really conversational.
So it sounds it's client driven. It sounds like, and tell us about what solution based means.
Solution based is the outcome. We're focused on the outcome, the positives. We don't focus on what it is you don't want, because that's a negative spin cycle. But solution is what do you want? How are you going to get it? And then that creates the motivation, that inspired action, so to speak, that really gets a result that then creates even greater results. And so like a spiral that just goes bigger and bigger and bigger. You get your result, you're motivated, you move toward another result. What happens in a lot of aspects is that people focus on the negative, tend to focus on what it is they don't want. I don't want this, I don't want that, which is pain-based, much like we were talking about earlier, Jen, where you focus on the pain, then I'm going to solve the pain, I'm going to take a pill, but the pain comes back, and so it's an endless cycle. Whereas solution, you imagine, when you activate this imagination that we have that's so great, and you just see yourself in a place of where you really want to be. And once you're able to do that and link in your values with that, then you can really create solid momentum toward accomplishing your goals.
That's a really good way of putting it, and I'm learning a lot this week. Steve and I are actually in a course that we're taking called NLP, or Neuro-Linguistic Programming, which is something fairly new to me. I'm working on that right now, and I wonder, Stephen, if you have a way of describing what it is we've been learning this past intensive week of study here in Vancouver.
That's good. Intensive is a good word for it, because what it does, I'm looking at it as a way it truly maximizes one's potential. You can break down barriers, you can break beliefs, you can create anchors that allow you to enter to really maximize your potential. If you want, like for instance, I work with sports in baseball, for instance. So if I put it in a baseball perspective, imagine a pitcher going out to the mound, being able to put himself into a state of complete control, confidence, and allow everything to fade away to it's only him focus on his task without worry about issues within himself or confidence issues. Everything's focused completely on the goal and everything. So it really narrows and focuses and maximizes one's potential. And that's where I see the magic in NLP.
That's great. Well, I'm looking forward to the second intensive week that we're doing. We're doing 2 sets of 6 full days of training here, and that's very well said. Great. Now, you have been passionate about baseball and you work with young people, and that's a particular, the working with youth is a particular area of interest for me as well. And I wonder if you can talk a little bit about how what you're learning and your coaching informs how you work with youth and what exactly it is you do with youth.
Oh, thanks, Jenn. Baseball is a passion of mine, and specifically working with kids. I've coached youth baseball for about 15 years, and I've seen athletes go from 8 years old, 6 years old, and now some of them are in professional baseball in the minors. And one thing I've learned is that to maximize your skill in a sport, specifically like baseball, it goes beyond the skill of just being able to swing a bat, of being a proper speed, being able to throw the ball a certain velocity. There's something even more, and that's where the coaching and specifically this NLP really comes into play. Coaching, the typical paradigm for a sports coach is to teach the skill, and then instill that skill into the game and guide the kids with the skill. What I've learned from coaching is that to give them the freedom to explore and to expand and to create. There's a term I've used a lot with players, create your game. And many have trouble in the beginning understand what that is, but when I talk about creating the game, I give them the space to imagine the possibilities before the play even takes place. You imagine a shortstop sitting at his position between every pitch. If he can sit there and visualize, or she, there's plenty of girls playing ball, if he or she can imagine the possibilities, what could happen before the pitch is even made. So when the play happens, they're able to react with confidence, with ease and grace, much more than just letting it happen and not being aware. So it creates awareness. It creates also this positive mentality. For instance, I've heard coaches on the bench say, don't make an error. Don't make an error. Well, what that does is that creates an image in the kid's mind of an error, because words are images expressed. So, for instance, like I said, when a coach says, don't make an error, the mental image within the player's mind is them making an error. So when the play happens, what's going to happen? They're going to make an error. However, what if you were to reframe that and say, make the play, or stay focused, or a positive outcome focus? Well, then that creates the space for them to be creative. And so that's one of the areas I've been able to instill coaching into youth sports. Another passion of mine is where my business is headed. In the fall, I hope to launch my business in the form of working with collegiate players and minor league players to help them maximize their potential to reach the highest levels. Some things aren't in their control, but what I will do is work with the things that are in their control, such as these states, being able to get into a flow state of creating the game before the play ever takes place, being able to take that position of stepping beyond the skill of being able to hit a ball, throw a ball. And that's where I'm taking my business and my practice. Not only will I still be working with careers, I love working as people go career change, but the baseball is really a passion of mine.
That's really it sounds like a valuable and an important place to be focusing your attention, especially with sort of the whole thing around sports right now. And there's all sorts of controversy going around, particularly here with pushing kids in sports and all the rest of it. And what do you see around that whole topic about how hard, there's been all sorts of people in trouble lately in the news about how hard we're pushing the kids in sports, and some of the parents getting involved when they shouldn't, and all the rest of it.
Yeah, that's very relevant. And I think really in youth sports, adults have put themselves into too much of the play. There was, you see, coach adults telling kids, do this during the entire game. Yet the structure of a game is you learn the skill and practice. Welcome to the streets of Vancouver. Someone's Harley. But like I was saying, Jenn, where the skills are taught in the practice and the game is to showcase what they've done. But what happens is that the skill is still being put into the game itself, and so therefore the game doesn't become as much fun. The parents, the adults start taking over the game, and the kids don't have as much fun. There's a program I instituted here in Richmond City Baseball not too long ago, a couple years ago, as an experiment that I called Sandlot Baseball. And what this was is that we took the coaches out of the game to where, and there was some resistance to this, believe me, like the coaches were like, what? You mean I can't stand on the sideline? No. I took all of our coaches on my team, and we sat in the stands and ate a hot dog. We were not allowed to say a word to the players. Now, if there were safety issues and all that, then there's one thing, which there weren't, and very rarely are there. But we stepped out of the game, and the results from that were amazing. I saw kids, the leaders emerged. The leaders were able to emerge, just from the team itself. And invariably, it was never the kid that the coaches thought would take over. It was always someone else.
Wow.
Someone stepped up that may have been quiet, may not had a major role on the team, and suddenly took over. Okay, here's the lineup. They treated each other fairly. I said, you guys play where you want to play, but keep it fair. Everybody was happy. Everybody played well. And they showcased their skills to their parents. And so I asked them, I said, Jenn, why? Well, after the end of the game, I said, what did you get out of this? What was the value of doing this? And they were like, well, we weren't playing for you anymore. I was playing for my teammate.
Oh.
And there's something really powerful in that statement right there.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's interesting because I think we had a conversation about this yesterday maybe about when we were kids, and you used to go out and play and you just make up your own games and your own rules and play wherever you are. Yeah. And like you say, the leaders emerge and nobody's watching. And not that we don't want parents to be supportive or be there for their kids or to have people in the sidelines cheering everybody on, but sometimes that controlling hand, like you say, it takes the fun out of the game for the individual and turns it into something more than perhaps the original intention was.
Oh yeah, Jen, without a doubt. I think what it actually sends kids away from the game and sends them to do other things. We look at video games and why. I mean, I love playing video games, don't get me wrong, but it's a very solo experience. Maybe you got people online that you're playing with, but it takes the adults out. So, but this idea of this Sandlot, I would love to see it instituted in leagues, continent-wide. You look down in the Dominican Republic, or you go look at the third world countries, like in soccer, for instance, and baseball as well. Some of the best players come out of those areas, and why is that? Those leagues aren't structured. There's kids playing in the streets with a stick and a piece of tape walled up to make a ball. When World Cup was here, we saw guys, I don't remember their country, where they would take garbage bags and wrap them up and tape them up. And these players were fantastic, awesome players. There weren't adults telling them how to play the game. They created the game. They were able to learn what their bodies were able to do without somebody telling you, okay, now you need to do a backflip. Now you need to step this way. Now you need to step that way. They just did it naturally through the flow and added the element of fun and play, which is what play is, right? Added the element of play and magic occurred.
So do you think it takes some of the passion out sometimes when it becomes so technical or even so prescriptive?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was reading Michael Jordan when he was a superstar in NBA basketball. I was reading his autobiography or his biography, I can't remember. And one of the things that he said he didn't even start his freshman year in high school on the basketball team. He sat on the bench the whole time. But he used to go down to the gym constantly, and his dad tried to make him repair cars. If this is the correct story, I'm almost positive it is. And he said, no, I don't want to. I want to play basketball. And no, you'll never make a living at that. But he loved to play. So when he made it to the NBA, he steps onto the court with these professional basketball players, and they're just using practice. They're just goofing off and just doing average stuff. And he was going and slamming the ball in their faces. He said, guys, we're getting to play. we're being kids. We're playing, and in that sense, he defined play. We tend to define play as it is something you go do, structured, organized, and we've taken that away from the kids. And I think if we are able to give them back their play, we can still create an organization where they can go and experience the game in a competitive environment, because I still believe in competition. I think that's a good life lesson to experience. But take the adults out of the game. Step them off the field. Maybe there's adult umpires. There's nothing wrong with that. But take the adults out of the game and let them experience the game. And I can see it working in all sports, especially rec, in all rec sports. And once they get to the high levels, college, who knows, right?
Yeah. Well, it's a really interesting idea, and who knows who's listening out there. That's right.
Well, you heard it first here.
That's right. Stephen Gann, he came up with those. So books that you might want to recommend. Is there anything, I asked you earlier about if there was any books that inspired you in this area, either in baseball or in the ideas that you have around performance?
Yeah. Well, I did reference Michael Jordan's biography. I think any athlete that you admire that's reached the top level of the game, read their book and find out how they did it. Gretzky in hockey talked about being able to take an overview look where you disassociate with yourself while still being in your own eyes. He had this way of seeing the field, seeing the ice that no one else did, and it took him to another level. Jordan was the same way. He could see space developing from a distance while he was in the play, and it would actually slow down. And that's where coaching and that's where NLP really can have a powerful effect, creates that flow state. Another book that I found very valuable is called The Inner Game of Tennis. I didn't do my research. I've read it, but I don't have the author's name.
We'll find it.
But we'll find it. Please reference him because he's a brilliant writer. He did this in the 70s, and there was awarenesses he had around the game of tennis and how much judgment, self-judgment, comes into play in your game. If you were to take the self-judgment out and just see things that they either are this or that and just be aware, and that's not good or bad, it just is, then your game can go to a much higher level.
Okay, well, we'll find the references for that and put them on the website at www.communicationdiva.com. So be sure to come over and check the site if you'd like to know more about that. Now, also, if you want to find Stephen Gann and have a further conversation with him or be in touch with him, where can people find you?
Well, my website is forwardfocuslifecoach.com. My business name is Forward Focus Coaching. I'm on Facebook, Forward Focus Coaching, Twitter, Forward Focus Coach with a 4. So you can find me there. So love to hear from you, love to talk to you. Drop me a line. Some of my blogs are up there. Feel free to respond. I'll talk to anybody and everybody.
That's great, and we'll put all of those links on the website as well. So just before we finish up and get to our delicious-looking lunch, as we're sitting here in the cafe, I'm wondering if you have one last tip for people out there.
Yeah, I think if there's anything that you could ever do that would make a significant change in your life, it would be to reframe any negatives to a positive. If you ever find yourself saying, I don't want, ask yourself simply, what would I rather have instead?
Wise advice. Excellent. Well, thank you very much for this conversation, Stephen, and I'm sure that this will be very valuable to a lot of people. And thank you very much for listening. This is Jenn Swanson with Communication Diva in this very loud corner of Vancouver. And we'll talk to you again next time.
Thank you, Jen. It was a pleasure and an honor to be on your program. Thank you.
So that was our loud interview on the corner of a busy street across from the Vancouver Library. And I'm hoping that you will check out Stephen's website and maybe send him a note. And please feel free to leave messages for me as well. Leave me a comment or anything that you're interested in offering to this conversation about sport and about coaching and about adults getting in the way or anything else that you heard on this podcast episode. Please feel free to leave us a note. at www.communicationdiva.com. I absolutely love to hear from any listeners out there, and I hope that you have a great rest of the week. And for those of you in British Columbia, happy BC Day. Take good care. This is Jenn Swanson. Until next time.